He taught me how to love, how to dream, how to trust again. And then, just when I finally let my guard down, he shattered everything. Because ruining me gave him power he couldn't find anywhere else. It sounds like something out of a tragic novel, doesn't it? A line you'd read on the back cover of a book and think, no one's life is actually like this. But it was mine, every word of it. Every carefully placed piece of that sentence was my truth, carved from moments that once felt like love and later tasted like blood in my mouth. I never thought I'd be the kind of girl who'd fall for the monster in disguise, and yet, I did. So stupidly, so completely. I met him at the lowest point in my life. After my mother died, after my father abandoned everything to his addictions, after the friends I thought were my anchors slipped away like smoke, that's when he appeared. As if he had been waiting in the wings for his moment to shine. Or maybe stalkers just know when someone is bleeding emotionally. He didn't come to save me. He came to study me. But I didn't know that then. To me, he was warmth in a world that had gone cold. His name was Caleb, the kind of name that sounds trustworthy, solid, safe. And he wore it well. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud. He was thoughtful, gentle, patient. The kind of man who asked questions not just to hear the answers, but to feel the spaces in between them. The first time he touched me, he didn't even touch me. He just handed me a coffee cup in the middle of a bookstore, a quiet little place I'd started visiting after class because my apartment felt like a grave. He noticed the book I was holding, Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, and instead of making some cheap joke, he just said, "That one hurts in all the right places, doesn't it?" And I looked up at him like he'd just read my autopsy. That's how it started. Little things, safe things. He didn't push, didn't flirt too soon. He asked about my mother like she was still alive. He remembered details I barely remembered saying. He gave me space when I needed it, and closeness when I didn't know how to ask. In a world that had been rushing past me without a glance, he made me feel seen. And slowly, so slowly, I began to trust him. He never missed a birthday. He'd leave little notes in the margins of books he'd lend me. Notes that made me cry in the middle of campus. "You're not a burden," one of them read. "Your poem's still being written." How do you not fall in love with someone who says things like that? He taught me to dream again. About a future. About building something with someone. About waking up next to someone who doesn't disappear. He helped me get therapy. He even sat outside the office the first time, just in case I panicked and ran. He met my brokenness with such grace that I started to believe I wasn't broken anymore. And when I finally told him I loved him, he didn't say it back right away. He just smiled, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You don't know how long I've waited for you to feel safe enough to say that." That moment, that exact moment, was the first time in years I felt like I could exhale. He moved in a few months later. We bought a plant together, cooked together. I showed him pictures of my mother, the ones I'd kept buried in the back of drawers. We cried together, or I thought we did. Now I wonder if he was ever really crying at all. Because when I look back, it all feels staged. I see it now. The way he studied me, not like a lover, but like a sculptor who was waiting for the clay to soften. He didn't rush me because he didn't need to. He knew I was already broken. He just waited until I handed him the pieces, smiling, saying, "Here, maybe you can make something beautiful out of me." He never wanted to make something beautiful. He just wanted to know what it felt like to hold someone's soul in his hands and crush it, slowly. But I didn't know that yet. Back then, I was just the girl who had finally found peace in someone else's heartbeat. I was the girl who finally stopped flinching at kindness. Who started believing again and forever. Who built her whole healing around the idea that not everyone walks away. And Caleb made sure he was the one who'd prove me wrong. It didn't happen all at once. That's what still haunts me. People assume betrayal is a sharp thing, a sudden crash, a single knife to the heart. But no. Betrayal is patient. It's slow. It's calculated. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And with Caleb, it began in whispers I didn't know how to hear. At first, it was small things. A shift in tone. A delayed reply. A missed date with a vague apology. Work's been crazy, he'd say, brushing my hair back with a hand that didn't linger the way it used to. Sorry, baby. I've just got a lot going on. And I believed him. Because when someone builds their entire image on being your safe place, the last thing you expect is for them to set fire to the walls. I remember one night in particular. I had made dinner, his favorite, lemon rosemary chicken and garlic mashed potatoes. I wore that soft green dress he used to love. The one he once said made me look like spring itself. I even lit candles, played that stupid playlist we made when we first moved in together. And I waited. He was 4 hours late. When he finally came in, he didn't even look at the table. No greeting, no kiss. Just a distracted, hey, like I was background noise to something more important. His shirt was wrinkled, his collar was stained with lipstick, a faint coral shade I never wore. I stared at it while he scrolled through his phone and muttered something about a meeting running long. Were you with someone? I asked, too softly. He laughed. But not like Caleb. Not like my Caleb. It was sharp. Defensive. Are we really going to do this? He said. Don't turn into that kind of girlfriend, okay? That kind. As if I'd suddenly been demoted from the one who saved him to the one who nags. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab his shirt and rub the lipstick right into his smug mouth. But instead, I nodded, like an idiot, like a trained little pet who didn't want to be left alone again. I told myself I was overthinking. Trauma brain, right? That's what he always called it when I got insecure. Your trauma's playing tricks on you, babe, he'd say, holding me. I'm not going anywhere. But now those words sound like poison wrapped in sugar. The signs grew bolder. He started staying out later. He put a lock on his phone. Changed passwords. He stopped bringing me flowers. Stopped asking how my day was. Stopped looking at me like I was the center of his universe and instead, like I was a planet he had already explored and gotten bored of. And then came the night that shattered everything. It was our anniversary. 1 year since the night he told me he loved me under that sycamore tree in the park, the place we'd always called ours. I spent hours planning the perfect evening. I booked a table at the restaurant where we'd had our first real date. Wrote him a letter with everything I never had the courage to say out loud. Even bought him a small gift, a silver keychain engraved with the coordinate of the bookstore where we met. But he didn't show. He texted 2 hours later. Can't make it tonight, let's talk later. No apology. No explanation. Just a cold, indifferent dismissal of everything I had poured into that day. I sat at that candlelit table alone, surrounded by couples toasting to love, and I've never felt smaller in my life. I cried in the Uber. Cried in the hallway. Cried while unlocking our apartment door. And when I stepped inside, still clutching that stupid little gift box, I heard laughter. Female laughter. From our bedroom. I froze. My heartbeat went still and loud, like a drumbeat inside a coffin. I moved toward the door like I was underwater, like every step was being taken by someone else. And there they were. Caleb, and a girl I'd never seen before. In our bed. Laughing. Drunk. Shirtless. Her lipstick matched the shade on his collar from weeks ago. They didn't notice me at first. He was pouring wine into 2 glasses, saying something smug, something charming. She was giggling, twirling her hair. And I stood there, invisible. A ghost in my own life. When he finally looked up and saw me, he didn't even flinch. He didn't look ashamed. Or guilty. He just looked annoyed. Jesus, can't you knock? He said. I don't know what broke more in that moment, my heart or my mind. She looked at me confused. Who's she? Caleb sighed, ran a hand through his hair. No one, he said. Just my ex. She's still obsessed. Ex? Obsessed. I felt the ground tilt under me. The wine bottle slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor, the crash loud enough to silence everything. I turned and left. I don't remember running. I don't remember the street or the cold air or the screaming inside my skull. I just remember ending up at a bench near the bridge, shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I had no plan. No words. just this gaping, bleeding hole in my chest where trust used to live. The next day, he blocked me. On everything. He wiped me out like I never existed. No explanation. No apology. Just digital erasure. I was evicted from his world with a swipe. Every photo, every message, every piece of the life we built, gone. A mutual friend told me he was already calling her his girlfriend. Said they'd been seeing each other for months. Said he had told people I was clingy, unstable, manipulative. He didn't just replace me. He rewrote me. He turned me into the villain of my own story, and the world believed him. That was the day I stopped crying. That was the day the pain calcified into something colder, sharper. That was the day I stopped being his victim and started becoming his consequence. Grief is not always quiet. Sometimes it roars, it claws, it burns through your bones and leaves behind the kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it suffocates. That's what the days after Caleb felt like. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling like it owed me an answer. I kept reaching for my phone, forgetting he wasn't there anymore. And even when I remembered, even when I reminded myself he chose her, he humiliated you, he erased you, it didn't hurt any less. Because when someone breaks you, the worst part isn't that they're gone. It's that you're gone too. I became a shell. I stopped answering calls, ignored messages, skipped classes. I stayed holed up in my apartment like I was waiting for time to undo itself. Like if I stayed still long enough, I could rewind everything, go back to the bookstore, say no to the coffee, walk away instead of falling into his trap. But real life doesn't offer do-overs, just consequences. The hardest part was looking at myself. Because Caleb hadn't just betrayed me, he'd made me doubt myself. Every time I replayed our memories, I wondered if I imagined the love. Was it ever real? Was any of it true? Or had it been a story he wrote for his own amusement, a broken girl he could fix just to break again? I started keeping a journal. Not for healing. Not at first. Just to remember who I was. Because he took that from me too. My laughter. My confidence. My trust in my own instincts. I'd write things like, "You are not crazy. You are not too much. You are not the villain. You are not broken just because someone loved you wrong." And slowly, so slowly, I began to claw my way out of the pit he left me in. I started therapy again. This time, not because he suggested it, not because I needed to be better for someone, but because I owed it to myself. I told my therapist everything, every manipulation, every gaslight, every moment that made me feel small. She listened. And then she said something that stuck with me forever. She said, "He didn't choose you because you were weak. He chose you because you were strong, and he wanted to own that strength. When he realized he couldn't, he tried to destroy it." That's when something shifted. I wasn't ashamed anymore, I was angry. Not screaming, burning anger. No, mine was cold. Focused. It didn't want chaos. It wanted justice. I didn't want to hurt Caleb the way he hurt me. That would be too easy for him. He just called me crazy again, turn himself into the victim again. No, I wanted something better. I wanted him to watch me rise. And I wanted him to know that he had no part in it. So I started rebuilding, piece by piece. I cleaned the apartment, threw away every trace of him. I sold the books he gave me, burned the notes he wrote. I replaced the bed sheets, painted the walls, donated the plant we bought together. I reclaimed my space. Then I worked on reclaiming myself. I reconnected with the friends I had pushed away. Some were angry. Some were sad. But most of them were just relieved to see me trying. I told them the truth, all of it. And for the first time in months, I realized I wasn't alone. The more I spoke up, the more I learned that Caleb had a pattern. I wasn't the only one. There were others, girls he had dated, hurt, discarded. One of them messaged me anonymously. Her name was Riley. Riley told me everything. She said he charmed her too. Promised her the world. Played the therapist. the romantic, the gentle man who understood her trauma. Then, slowly, he chipped away at her confidence until she was too scared to leave. He feeds on women like us, she wrote. Women with soft hearts and scarred pasts. He makes you believe you're healing. And then he sinks his claws in. I cried when I read it, not because it was shocking, but because I had known deep down that I wasn't the first. And now I knew I wouldn't be the last. Unless someone stopped him. That's when the idea took root. I wasn't just going to heal. I was going to make sure Caleb never got to do this to another woman again. It wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be petty. It would be precise. And it would be final. But before I could destroy him, I had to finish rebuilding me. I started applying to internships. Got accepted into a creative writing program I had put off for years. My professor, a brilliant woman named Dr. Ellis, took me under her wing. She said I had a voice that could crack glass if I stopped softening it for people who didn't deserve to hear it. So I wrote about him, about me, about the girl I used to be and the woman I was becoming. I poured every tear, every scar, every silent scream into those pages. I didn't hold back. Not this time. The truth had nearly been taken from me once. I wasn't going to let it happen again. I turned my final essay into a creative nonfiction piece. How to Survive a Man Who Only Loved You When You Were Broken. Dr. Ellis submitted it, without telling me, to a national magazine under a pseudonym. It went viral. Not just shared. Not just liked. Viral. Women reached out from all over the country. They thanked me, cried with me, shared their own versions of Caleb. My inbox became a battlefield of survival stories. And then, one message stood out. Hey, I think I know who you're talking about. I dated him too. We were engaged. He cheated on me the same way. Attached was a photo. It was him. Same eyes. Same fake smile, but a different name. Apparently, Caleb wasn't even Caleb. And just like that, the final piece fell into place. He had reinvented himself. City after city. Woman after woman. A ghost in plain sight. But this time, I had a name. A face. A platform. And now, I had a plan. Revenge isn't about rage. Not real revenge. Not the kind that matters. It's not slashing tires or screaming on doorsteps. It's not dramatic confrontations or teary ultimatums. That's just noise, the kind of chaos men like Caleb feed on, because it gives them more ammunition to call you crazy. To twist the narrative, to turn the world against you one more time. No, the kind of revenge I planned was surgical. Clean, deliberate, and irreversible. First, I needed more proof, not of what he'd done to me, but of what he'd done to others. Because my story was emotional, yes. Devastating, yes. But it was also personal. It could be dismissed. What I needed now was a pattern. Riley helped me reach out to the other women. 3 more stepped forward. 3 women from 3 different states, all with eerily similar stories. Same tactics. Same charm. Same emotional dismantling. And all of them thought his name was different. To one, he was Caleb Blake. To another, Jason Wells. To the third, Ethan Moore. He was a shapeshifter, a walking illusion, a man who collected identities the way predators collect pelts. And none of us had ever connected the dots until now. He never expected any of us to find one another. He always counted on our silence. But this time, he miscalculated. I compiled everything. The screenshots. The messages. The overlapping timelines. The photos. The receipts. Even voice notes. One of the women had secretly recorded him belittling her during a fight. It was cruel. Chilling. In it, he laughed as she cried and said, "You're lucky I even chose you." That line alone made my blood turn to ice. It was enough. I built a case, not for court, but for exposure. I created a private site, password protected. With consent from each woman, I laid out the pattern of abuse in excruciating detail. We didn't name him outright. Not yet. But we described him. Described the tactics. The lies. The manipulation. Then we created an anonymous Instagram account called @NaughtyOrCaleb. We posted excerpts. Side-by-side timelines. Quotes. Not rage. Just facts. Calm, measured, horrifying facts. It started slow, a few followers, a few shares. But then, the messages started pouring in. I think I know this man. He did this to my friend. I met him on a dating app. He told me the exact same story about losing his mother. I don't know if this is the same guy, but this post? It's my life. It spread like wildfire. And then, one woman messaged us a photo, one we hadn't seen yet. It was Caleb, sitting in a corporate office, smiling with a coffee mug in hand. The company logo was visible behind him. It was a startup consulting firm based in Seattle. And next to him, standing like they were just so proud of each other, was his new fiancée. Her name was Marissa. I stared at her face for a long time, wondered if she knew, wondered how many times she'd already been lied to, wondered if she had started doubting herself yet, or if she was still in that early phase, the dreamy haze before the poison kicks in. Either way, she deserved to know. So we made one final post. A letter. Not to Caleb. To her. Dear Marissa, you don't know us. But we know him. We've each loved him. Trusted him. Believed in him. We know the way he makes you feel. Chosen, safe, seen. We know the way he touches your back in public and tells you no one's ever understood him like you do. We also know what comes next. The manipulation. The gaslighting. The cheating. The erosion of your self-worth so slowly you won't even notice it's gone until you're standing in the wreckage wondering what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. He did. And he's done it before. More than once. We aren't here to shame you. We're here to save you. Because none of us had that. But you still can. Please read our stories. Look at the evidence. See the pattern. And then, do whatever feels right to you. With love. The women before you. We posted it at midnight. By morning, our inbox was flooded. Women were sharing it, commenting, deeming. We were suddenly on Twitter, on TikTok, in group chats, in articles. Influencers were reposting it. The hashtag #NaughtyOrCaleb was trending. And within 48 hours, Marissa replied. Not publicly. She messaged us directly. I believe you, she wrote. Thank you for saving me. She sent a photo of her ring on the table off her finger. And in the background, visible in the blur, was a suitcase. She left him. And then, she exposed him. She named him publicly. Shared the evidence. Her post alone had over 1 million views. And once his real name was out there, his real name, the one tied to the office job, everything came crashing down. His company issued a statement. He was placed on leave, pending internal investigation. His fiancée blocked him. His dating profiles were flooded with warnings. His friends turned silent. His phone, we heard from one source, was blowing up. He tried to post his own statement. Played the victim. Claimed slander. Ex-girlfriends with vendettas. Fake accusations. But no one believed him. Because we had proof. Because we had each other. Because we were done being quiet. Weeks passed. I didn't check his socials anymore. I didn't care where he was or who he blamed. I didn't need to. The silence from him was the loudest admission of guilt I'd ever heard. One morning, I walked past the same bookstore where we met. I stood outside for a second, staring at the window. I thought I'd feel triggered. Angry. Shattered. But I didn't. I felt free. I walked inside, bought a book, left with a smile. Because I wasn't the same girl anymore. I wasn't just someone who survived Caleb. I was someone who made damn sure he'd never be able to hurt anyone else again. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting to be loved. I was finally loving myself. It could have ended there. The account had gone quiet. The stories had been told. Marissa had escaped. Caleb, or whatever name he was using now, had disappeared from every platform. The women he'd hurt were healing, separately and together. Some in new relationships. Some building careers. Some just breathing again. I should have moved on too. I thought I had. Until the email came. It was from a burner address. No name. No subject. Just 2 lines. You think you won? You still don't know anything. You were never special, just useful. I stared at the screen, not blinking. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I didn't scream or cry. I just smiled. Because in that moment, I realized something. He was unraveling. He wasn't angry because I exposed him. He was angry because I didn't fall apart afterward. Men like Caleb don't need to be loved. They need to be remembered. They need to take up space in your mind. They need to live rent-free in your fear. And I had cut him off completely. That's what made him furious. He wanted me to respond, to scream, to defend myself, to fall into his trap again, back into the mess of explanation and guilt and begging. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't the same girl he left bleeding on the floor. I was the woman who buried her ghost and danced on the grave. So I did what he never expected. I wrote back. You're right. I wasn't special to you. But that's your loss, not mine. Because I became someone without you. And the only thing you're useful for now is a story I already finished writing. Then I blocked the address, deleted the thread, and closed my laptop. That night, I slept without nightmares. Months passed. I moved cities. Took a job at a nonprofit that helps survivors of emotional abuse. I started giving talks at colleges. Quiet, powerful little sessions, full of women who thought they were alone. I told them the same thing I once needed to hear. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you're not alone. My story had turned into something bigger than revenge. It had turned into rescue. But the twist wasn't just that Caleb reached out. It was what came next. One day, Riley messaged our group chat. She was shaking, panicked, said she'd gotten a call from a reporter, a journalist from a respected media outlet, someone doing a piece on digital reckonings and patterns of abuse exposed online. He wanted to interview the women from at Naughty or Caleb. At first, we were hesitant. We didn't want to make it a circus. Didn't want to be reduced to sound bites. But the reporter, his name was Miguel, was gentle, smart. He'd done his research. He wasn't chasing scandal. He was chasing truth. So we agreed. We sat for a recorded interview, separately, in different cities. We told our stories. On record. Faces blurred, names changed, but voices clear. We handed him the receipts. The timeline. The trauma. And Miguel dug deeper. He did what we couldn't. He tracked Caleb's aliases, found documents, employment records, discrepancies. He found 5 other women who hadn't spoken up yet. One of them, painfully, had attempted to take her own life after her time with him. She survived, but barely. When Miguel's article dropped, it was like a bomb. The men WHO loved broken women, a pattern of manipulation and emotional abuse across state lines. Featured in The Atlantic, it wasn't just viral. It was evidence. The piece detailed everything. Anonymous testimonies, expert analysis, pattern recognition, the language of predators who never touch, never hit, but ruin all the same. The headline alone sparked national attention. Caleb's name, his real one, was everywhere. Suddenly, companies were issuing statements, legal threats, HR investigations. His entire career collapsed in slow motion, publicly. Not because we dragged him, but because we stood still while the truth finally caught up. And the final twist? An arrest warrant. Not for emotional abuse, That's still not a crime in many places. But for fraud. Turns out, Caleb had been falsifying resumes, lying under oath in court proceedings, using multiple social security numbers. His whole life was built on a tower of carefully balanced lies. And now, that tower was dust. I saw the mugshot on the news one night. Same face, different eyes. No confidence, no smugness, just defeat. I didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't toast to karma. I just breathed. Because that photo wasn't mine to celebrate. It belonged to the girl I used to be, the one he shattered. And to every girl who would never meet him because we said something. It's strange. Healing. It doesn't come in one big moment. It comes in fragments. In drinking your coffee without checking your phone for danger. In waking up and not flinching at memories. In laughing too loud and not apologizing for it. In walking into a bookstore and not seeing a ghost, just books. One day, I might fall in love again, or maybe not. But either way, I'll never forget the way I survived. And if he ever reads this, if he ever finds this story, let him know. I was never his victim. I was his ending.